Hello, friends. Government got you down. The cost of goods stressing you out. Bombs freaking you the fuck out. Try revolution. Revolution has some side effects, including bugging the fuck out and getting yourself killed and letting anger control you or dictate your actions. So, what I'd like to talk about today is a brief history of some of the CIA programs that people had no idea were happening at the time, and yet are disclosed now, mostly because of journalists. So, there's a huge issue currently happening right now, which is that people are very mad about ICE doing excessive raids. Obviously, there is a division between the Trump faction who thinks this is in good faith, thinks they're going after illegal immigrants who are draining our system. And now there is an oppositional force gathering and amassing in certain states, and we're back to people going in the streets in order to protest. You're seeing action reaction, and so obviously we do not want a government which overreaches and kills American citizens. That is obviously unconstitutional. The vow they've taken to withhold the Constitution, no political party has any right to overstep that. Now, everybody's been screaming and afraid that the Trump administration will be some sort of totalitarian dictatorship, and I agree with that, except I want to point out that some degree of this would be happening no matter who the president is. And the president is more like an enabler of the government. And I just want to remind you that the people that make these choices are above the president. And my easiest example is even Lindsey Graham, Mark Rubio, Ted Cruz, Nancy Pelosi. These people have been above presidents. They don't have term limits, and so they are a glimpse into what we would call permanent Washington, but a very small level of power. Now, nobody liked Nancy Pelosi. The Republicans yelled about her, and some Democrats then feel like they need to double down, but for the most part, Democrats didn't like her either. Even not liking her, with horrible ratings, she can admit in public that she does insider trading with her husband, which is illegal, and that it shouldn't be a problem. And that's how she operated. Chuck Schumer, nobody likes him. Lindsey Graham, the guy he salivates over war. Nobody likes him. He's unpopular in his own state. And yet he continues to froth at the mouth and develop a long-standing relationship with the deep state, CIA, intelligence agencies. And the intelligence agencies are non-votable entities. You don't vote for those people. They get jobs hired by the government. This means that permanent Washington involves the deep state more than there is the power of a president to change or stop that. Now, I want to tell you that they bait and switched on Donald Trump. They wanted to get a strong man as a way to use him in order to fulfill an agenda that has been in place for a very long time. This is not just Donald Trump's ideas. The problem is he's willing to go along with it. Now, Obama deported a lot of people, a lot of illegal immigrants. And so there's a question of, is Trump deporting more illegal immigrants than Obama was? Obviously, we won't know right away. And the issue is how Trump is choosing to do it, obviously, is causing the left to become angry, severely angry, to the point where retribution is becoming inevitable. Now, we are living in a world where retribution after retribution after retribution has become the norm. Whether you like that the CEO of some healthcare company was shot, and whether you like that Charlie Kirk was shot, whether you like that any of these people, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, there's a long track record of assassinations. There's also a long track record of them never actually making sense if you do any amount of research as to what they tell you happened versus what actually happened. So we know that assassinations are a thing that's being encouraged. What we don't want is for our revolution as Americans to be an eye for an eye, assassinate the left, assassinate the right, assassinate the left, assassinate the right. Oh, wow, this is what's the only power we have, because what's going to happen is the deep state that we are talking about, which will exist whether Kamala Harris is the president or Gavin Newsom or fucking Mondani or any of these people. Likely it's going to be J.D. Vance hand-selected for you because he's Palantir. He's Peter Thiel's boy. I don't know what the Democrats are going to be able to come up with as far as an opposition to J.D. Vance. But what I want to tell you is that no matter who you vote for, you are getting the tech bros. Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk to some degree, all these, Sam Altman, these people have found a way to circumvent the problem of government. The problem of government is that there's a fucking constitution in the way when it comes to people. So they can't just control us and they can't just manipulate us because we complain. And they can't force us to just be slaves because we'll demand things. AI replaces all of that for these people. Robots and drones replaces all of that. So again, we have probably 25 sociopaths leading us to our own demise. And what we're going to end up doing is fulfilling that extermination agenda by allowing ourselves to froth out of the mouth so hard for these culture war issues that they are baiting us into in order to kill each other. Physically kill each other. To the point where our society is so manic and so fear-based and so many mass shootings and mass bombings and this is and that's. And half of them are going to be staged, half of them are going to be coaxed, half of the people who do it are going to have ties to the FBI, the CIA, they're going to have private messages and Telegram, this, that, and the other thing. But what you have is that the agenda does not change depending on who you vote for president. Who you vote for is only going to lead to robots and drones and mass AI surveillance. When you have something like what happened in Palestine, you have a land grab. That's really the purpose, because that's going to be one of the first digital mass AI surveillance cities. It's going to be Dubai 2.0. Trump's got real estate. Kushner's got investment. Netanyahu's right there. That is a land grab before your eyes. They put in front of you cultural and ethical and moral and religious issues for you to fight amongst, but that agenda is much more maniacal and does not care at all about philosophy. It does not care at all about the polarity of politics. That engine runs above the polarity of politics or the culture war issues. It sets those culture war issues. It determines policy. It determines law. It has infiltrated all of our governments globally, and it controls the tightening of the ratcheting of the noose around our necks regarding our freedom, specifically the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. Now, the reason that there's such an infiltration in the United States is because we, as a coincidental illusion, stand on the best version of a constitution that a country has ever come up with. And despite the foundational corruption of our entire governance to fucking Benjamin Franklin, there's a lot to talk about there, but what you have is now everything is surrounded in circumventing the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. So the free speech issue has been psychologically operated on throughout all the culture wars. For example, racism, sexism, homophobia, developing a society which puts all those issues so deeply in front of the culture that the culture argues and fights over it, and then suppression and censorship of one side occurs. COVID. One side believes that we should all follow what the government says, and the other side says we shouldn't. And that side says the other side should be repressed. They should be censored. They're not allowed to talk. How great. That's a different faction. Here's another faction. If you're on the left and now you criticize Israel, you're an anti-Semitic and you'll get your fucking social media platforms removed. Every stage of this, no matter what the issue, has the same exact intended goal, which is to ratchet up the ability to cancel everything that is critical to them. That's the goal of it. They don't care if you like trans people or hate trans people. They literally create these issues to be in your face because they own the media, so that they keep us distracted from what they're actually doing, which is organized crime. The same things that you would go to jail for the rest of your life, they have found ways to circumvent government in order to do transnational, multinational, organized crime. They're the ones, I mean, look at the history. The CIA brings in more drugs than any fucking cartel in Mexico into this country. It's always been that way. The deep states, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, Mossad, British intelligence, whatever the fuck level you want to point to, those people, and they make shell companies, and they do organized crime through those shell companies. That's what the whole Epstein thing is about on multiple levels. He was just one of their guys for sex fantasies with underage girls often. And also of age women, and also arranged marriages with fucking models from other countries, also gun trafficking, also drug trafficking. That's what all these transnational organizations are doing, and they're the ones that are determining that we should fight amongst ourselves in culture wars. No overreach of the right to protest should ever happen. What we're seeing now is that when COVID lockdowns existed, the left was like, you shouldn't be allowed to fucking go out in public. Then it was like, well, we're allowed to protest for George Floyd. And the left was like, oh yeah, that's okay. And then January 6th, a bait and switch. Literally, that was an entrapment scheme that was done as an operation in order to screen insurrection, which obviously is ironic because all these gun-toting Republicans went to have an insurrection on the White House and didn't bring a goddamn fucking gun. Okay, so that's really interesting. So half of them were invited. The violence was there. Some of that violence was stoked by fucking federal agents. That's what happens. So the proof of the concept is the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot by the Oath Keepers was FBI agents infiltrating some militia group and buying them fucking plane tickets and buying them weapons, this, that, and the other thing, because that FBI agent who infiltrated them actually beat the shit out of his wife and was getting sentenced, and he decided that he was going to do this operation. That's all been exposed by breaking points. For example, So then you have you have Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You could look up COINTELPRO. There were infiltrators that went in order to distract people and make them fight amongst themselves and fucking try to radicalize everyone. The whole warning of radicalization and all this shit you're hearing is more like conditioning and hyper-suggestion, right? So on the left, you hear every right-wing extremism is the most dangerous thing. And it's like, oh, those Oath Keepers got fucking baited into a kidnapping plot. Well, would they have done that otherwise? Would they have done criminal activity if they weren't fucking suggested to? And this is all documented. So, COINTELPRO. So what they do, this is like, at the underlying basis of this is the experimental MK Ultra, right? So the hyper suggestibility and also the infiltration of a person through social media, and those people don't even know necessarily that what they're doing is talking to a fucking agent, and that agent actually radicalizes them. Another proof of this concept is during the time of ISIS, when ISIS was growing, thanks to leaving a whole bunch of fucking weapons in Syria, thanks Obama administration, actually the same fucking people that are still there in the CIA, in the FBI, a lot of those people didn't change. So the only person who's left the fucking CIA in the last 20 years is like Edward Snowden, you know, and he's the worst. Oh. Thanks to him, we know some of this shit. So COINTELPRO, then you have MK Ultra, is a mind control program that was done first in vitro on individual people. They discontinued that program, and then they started applying it to social engineering. And so what you have is there is a conscious desire to radicalize you into shooting a motherfucker, because that's how they use more and more examples to scare the shit out of our society and lock us down. It doesn't matter if that is a invisible virus or a fucking Saudi or a fucking Taliban or a white nationalist extremist or a radical trans kid. Those are all fucking cultivated to scare the shit out of all of us and to take away our rights. And those rights are based on free speech. And what we don't have is a conscious debate about the difference between free speech and hate speech. And it was never done properly. So what we have is basically, instead of our leaders having debates consciously about what's the difference between free speech and hate speech, let's make the laws, let's upgrade our government system in order to encompass, now we have online speech. They haven't done that. They've made it into a culture war, and now we, as a populace of fucking 400,000 people or whatever in the United States, are arguing amongst ourselves about the difference between hate speech and free speech. They didn't create standards, rules, and application of that issue. So for me, I've thought about it a lot, and I think, you know, free speech until implied violence is different. If someone says, I'm going to come kill you, or I want to kill your whole family, or I'm going to bomb you or some shit like that, that I would consider is like more, that's the line. And that just seems so reasonable to me. Obviously, implied threats, right? Free speech except for implied threats. And then hopefully people, and then there's like trust. People are smart enough to not be brainwashed. I know that at the, you know, when these social events happen like COVID, you know, everyone who's on the team vaccine thinks that everybody who's suspect must be brainwashed by Donald Trump, or like must be a hick that can't think, must be someone who's not a critical thinker. This is obviously a fundamental flaw. There are debates and there are discussions to have about all these issues, and what we have not had is a government, politicians, in order to say, let's figure this out. Let's debate publicly on these issues. Let's do town halls. Let's fucking get right guy and left guy together. You know, the only reason that right and left get together is for fucking war, is for the military budget. Otherwise, They try to make you think out there that every left person is trans, purple-haired, puts tampons up their nose, is fucking psychotic, and that's the extreme side. But what right-wing media tries to do is brainwash people to think that that's all of them, that's all of them, that's all of them. They all want to eat your babies. And then on the right, you have left-wing media being like, they're all Nazis, they're all neo-Nazis, everybody's fucking radical and they hate gays. And this is where we actually, as a populace, are much more in the middle. And that doesn't mean like neocon Hillary Clinton warmongering. It doesn't mean, centrist. It means I can see a nuanced debate with all these issues. My leaders have done nothing but stoke culture wars because all of their agenda is to get you to hate each other, to not listen to each other, and to kill each other. Literally, physically kill each other. That's what they want. They don't care what issue it's over. They want to say, look, everybody's violent. Now they need the Gestapo. Now they need everybody to come and put the things in order. And that is actually what a society can stoke. So now that's what we're going to see with the ICE protests. We're going to see ICE protests. We're going to see, destruction of property, which technically is a little different than violence. You're going to first see destruction of property. Throwing bricks, what's up? Like in Oregon, when the George Floyd protests happened, there were all these fucking bricks, all these piles of bricks that get left around because they want people picking up bricks and throwing them around, and they want people smashing because they want that footage. They want that footage for their fucking propaganda machine so they can be like, look, all these people are crazy extremists, and they're trying to convince the other side to want to objectify and kill the other side. Like, oh my God, look, they all they destroy their towns and they destroy their cities. And sometimes what happens, like January 6th or the George Floyd protests, on all these sides, what happens is agitators come, and it's a vulnerable psychological space because you have a group mind, you have a group organism, a bunch of ants, and they're trying to find meaning. And when you have agitators come, and they do destructive things, they light fires, they do all these things. We've all seen like the masked dudes that look all sketchy. Are they all Antifa or some of them fucking federal agents? So it's on both sides. And what they want is literally media that shows like, oh, the kids can't protest nonviolently. Look at them. They're killing each other. They're shooting each other. They're blowing up towns. Please keep doing that. Burn all the cop cars. Do all the shit that gets the media footage to show they're bad, they're bad, they're bad, they're violent, they're violent, they're violent. And then the worst, most violent, maniacal, narcissistic sociopath comes out with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. And they're going to fucking blow us to bits and be like, this is how we take care of you. So it's always this bully methodology. And this is like U.S. foreign policy. We poke them in the eye, 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 poke them in the eye. Then when they fight back, we're like, oh my God, we're the victims. You're terrorists. This war on terror is a psychological operation. They're just looking for terror anywhere. Anywhere they can get terror, they're going to stoke racial issues and gender issues and all of these issues. They are important to talk about, and they all have nuance. But you are being filtered into thought groups that are too small for the actual nuance of the conversation. Like, I love abortions all the time, or I hate abortions all the time, is inappropriate to the issue. And they have done a horrible job. All the politicians, all the people you supposedly voted in, they've all done a horrible job of representing adult conversations. You had, during the vaccine issue, you had Robert Malone going on social media podcasts. You had Anthony Fauci on the TV networks. Why the fuck can't they be put in a room together to have a debate? We have all the technology. We have all the tools. Why did the system stop that from occurring? That's the first red flag. They were isolated on purpose. No, two narratives. As long as there's two narratives, I just want you kids fighting. Fight, divorce, kill each other. Let us come in with CPS. Let us come take your kids away. Let us control your fucking whole lives. That's where we are going, and that is what the agenda is trying to do. So let's see some of these comments here. Bria says both are the same evil, just different options. I am trying to tell you it's two wings of the same bird. And here's the thing. You're afraid of the Trump Gestapo? That shit is real and it's dangerous, and ICE is pretty fucked up. And I just learned that they were part of the 9/11 war on terror shit. The whole National Defense Authority Act is really fucking scary. What they're doing with that is not good for freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, right? You must exercise your right to peaceably assemble, but the word is peaceably. If they come in and agitate and throw fucking bricks and light shit on fire, it doesn't look peaceable. And so then how many times can you do that before the government's like, oh, well, we have all this fucking LRAD technology. We have all these fucking army tanks and cats, those fucking like Hummers with all the armor plating. Let's use them. Let's keep giving more funding to the police to militarize the police until they don't need to be people and they're just robots. And now there's drones everywhere to make sure that you kids don't fucking burn things down. And that's what's ushering in the mass AI data surveillance apparatus that is your worst fear of governance. So let's see. It's not a culture war. It's political warfare. No one cared about the people that died by ICE in December. They didn't care until it happened on Waltz's grounds. Waltz and Frey are currently being investigated for tax spending fraud. You know, I would say that some people, see, this is the language that we're getting stuck in. No one cared about this, right? So it's like, why didn't you care about this at this time? That's whataboutism. And some people cared. Some people had lives. Some people were working too hard. Some people were burnt out. Some people were too busy fucking in the woods. Some, fucking in the woods. There should be a comma there. So we can't say, like, everybody, you cannot possibly stay on every culture war issue and know it enough to yell about it. That's not always the best case scenario, and a bunch of people yelling about something they're not well informed about is not going to lead to any progress either. So there's an issue. What I wanted to say is the ICE issue, Gestapo, once there's another pandemic and the Democrats are in office, the ICE Gestapo will be the fucking pandemic police. And we will be like, oh my God, now the other side's experiencing totalitarianism. You don't get this shit back. Once your government starts to engage this, you never get it back. And it will be used under any administration because the ratcheting, the precedent, and Trump is the perfect guy for ratcheting up that precedent, but it didn't start with him and it won't end with him. And that's the thing that we need to be mindful of. Of course, the Somali fraud issue, what I just want to remind people is at that same time, which this little Nick kid, he was groomed by fucking Mossad or something, and he comes out and he takes a story that was already released by James O'Keefe like 6 years ago. And so, yes, maybe there's some fraud there. Maybe there's even millions of dollars of fraud with Tim Walz. But you know what came out that same fucking week? That the Pentagon didn't pass their 15th audit. That is trillions or even tens or hundreds of trillions of dollars of fraud. That is your entire political system. And so, of course, they're always trying to find news articles to hide the issue. Venezuela buried the fact that the Trump administration broke the law over releasing the Epstein files. Broke the law. Betsy, whatever the fuck that lady's name is, Betsy Luann, the blonde-haired lady that's doing a horrible job, Mrs. Bondi, she broke the law, bro, according to the law that they passed to get those files out. Now everybody's fighting over Venezuela. Now everybody's fighting over ICE. Yes, we got to walk and chew gum. You know, it's very hard, but some of these issues are operations. Carla says, please read David Icke. I mean, I've listened to him. He lost me on the lizards, but I like what he's saying. Aside from our government is physical lizards, I think that was a little bit like a metaphor that he took too literally. But yeah, he was the first guy for getting canceled talking about the Zionist one world government agenda. Sounded crazy at the time. Yeah, leave the world behind. Obama movie, of course, I heard of it. I don't know what happens, but probably there's mass chaos and the government has to crack down. Myra says, I think one of the main issues is that people need to understand conflict in ideas isn't bad. Yes, and we need to learn mature and healthy ways to engage in it. This is where I wish we could just take all these issues and shout out to Charlie Kirk in the way that that's what he was trying to do. And even if he had like beliefs that you didn't align with, not everybody sits out there with a fucking sign and tries to debate people. And that actually was one of his things, which I realized I didn't know shit about this guy until he got shot. And now I pretty much think that he got shot because he was exposing money embezzlement through his company, and also he was turning against Israel. They shot him too. So we need those kind of, like, that to me would be fucking radical protest. You want to put up a pop-up and say something, 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 prove me wrong, and just go fucking debate people all day. That's going to let the gas, see, that's what we should have been doing instead of now we're at each other's throats and want to kill each other. You know, again, an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. ICE shoots civilian, civilian shoots ICE. That makes two dead people. I mean, a dead people. Haven't y'all ever heard that song? War isn't murder. Something, something, something. So, watch out for the operations. It's getting dark. The geese are starting to leave. And this message will self-destruct. Any questions, comments? I totally agree, Myra. I think this is really the issue is, like I'm saying, the people who so-called are in charge have done nothing other than propagandize these cultural issues. They've only used them for political division because they know that adrenaline gets them elected and all this stuff. And every single issue, from race, from gender, from abortion, racial pride, who's allowed to be proud of their race, or whose is culture, institutional racism, whether children should be able to become transgender without their parental consent, whether everyone needs to take a vaccine in order for us all to not die, whether COVID was a biological weapon that was made in a laboratory. All these issues were handled so poorly just to brainwash people into wanting to think that the other side is a demon. And if you just kill the demons on the other side, you will live in paradise. And that is exactly what they want, because they're just want us to kill each other and get out of their fucking way so that robots can massage them and fucking bring their food and harvest their cabbages and, make their slop, make their fucking Impossible burgers. They just want to replace us with fucking robots, and we shouldn't fall prey to it. So what happens now, these videos, they've changed Facebook again. So it says your video will be available for 30 days and then it deletes it. That was never the case. Now it's the case. So thanks to your social media dictators for ratcheting down free speech. These videos used to be able to be posted in full. Now we only get 30 days. There's all kinds of little things that are happening in order for you to not be able to say these things, for me to be censored. Obviously, these videos, my whole post, all my social media gets fucking censored. I had every notification. I got blocked on this, that, and the other thing. you know, all for saying things like this. So God bless you all. Study nonviolent resistance, and peace.